right, so a little bit about where we're going today. We started our introduction, but then we're going to focus on one foundational concept of nonviolent communication, needs and strategies, and we're going to leverage that for empathic listening. And based on those two concepts, we hope that you will get a taste of connection with another person. And then we're going to have a closing circle, and I'm reserving about 30 minutes at the end for question and answer. So that's where we're going. And the processes in nonviolent communication, there's 4 general processes. Self-empathy is kind of the foundation of nonviolent communication. And that is when we look inside of ourselves to connect with what's true, what feelings and needs are alive within ourselves. And what's cool about that is once I'm connected to what's true for me, then I start to feel naturally curious and passionate towards other people. So that's one of the magic, I'm not sure if you call it magic or just a mystery, but once you connect with what's really true for you, it opens up this window of freedom towards others. And then empathic listening, empathy is one of the processes we look at. Also honesty, honest expression. And combining those two is what I call connection. You know, connection results from mutually hearing and expressing each other. So understanding and getting each other's needs is essentially what happens in connection. And then finally, strategy, which is at the top. Strategy are the things that we do to meet our needs. And we'll contrast that with needs in the next section. But today, we're going to be focused mostly on empathy, so empathic listening. So now let's go to our first concept, needs consciousness. And this I got from Jim Maskey. Actually, he has a book just released. I need to update my reference. Pathways to Nonviolent Communication is what the book is called, but originally it was called Pathways to Liberation. Needs consciousness, awareness of, and the willingness to honor needs, the universal elemental qualities of life, like sustenance, love, and meaning. And yeah, we'll get into more definitions later. I find it more helpful actually to like present this concept with a live exercise. So that's where we'll go next. I'm seeing Lexi, is your hand up for a question, or is that left over from last time? Okay, so I see the hand low.
Sorry about that.
All right, no problem. Okay, so moving along, so strategies. So we're gonna make a list of strategies, which are the things that we do to meet our needs. And we're gonna list the strategies first, and then we'll look at what needs are being met by each strategy. And I'd like to make a list of like 3 or maybe 4 strategies of what you all do for fun. And I'm gonna just get it started because just to demonstrate what we're gonna be doing. So one of the things that I do for fun actually is kind of a self-connection practice. So I'm adding yoga to the list. So that's mine. I'd love to hear 3 more strategies of what you do for fun. So go ahead and speak up.
Dance.
Dance. Dance. Any particular kind of dance or just any dance?
Any dance. I teach modern dance, so that's usually what I'm doing.
All right. And I'm just going to put a plug in for ecstatic dance. That's what I'm into. Ecstatic, like 5 rhythms. All right, and yeah. So dance, and what, let's go for another one, a different one. What else do y'all do for fun? Did I hear paint?
Hiking.
Hiking. All right, hiking, any particular place?
Preferably the mountains.
All right, in the mountains, I like that. Yeah, because some people hike in the neighborhood. So it's, yeah, just differentiating that from just walking on the street. Thank you. All right, one more strategy.
Travel.
Travel. Any particular place, or traveling abroad, or traveling anything that qualifies it a little bit more?
Away from home, just anything away from home.
I can barely hear you. Can you speak up, please?
Away from home?
Away from home, like to the grocery store?
No, like maybe a weekend getaway, or it doesn't necessarily have to be out of the country. Just
Okay, a
away.
weekend getaway. All right. So any place to get away. So it could be another city, or all right, that's good enough. Thank you. So now let's go back. So these are the things that we do, strategies, and now let's look at what's motivating the strategy. So what needs are being met by yoga? So I'll list a few that are met for me, and we can add some more. So like self-connection, I'd say embodiment, health and well-being. Yeah, anything else? I'm sure there are other people that practice yoga. Any other like needs that are met for you as like why you practice yoga?
Movement might be one.
Yeah, movement. Cool.
And de-stressing.
So de-stressing, I would say meeting a net need for peace, maybe. Peace and harmony. And for some people that practice in a group, it could be around community too. I actually have a solo practice. So good. So that's pretty good for yoga. What about dance? Whoever brought this up, what's your motivation for dance? Why do you do it?
Self-expression, creativity.
Creativity.
It's also a form of mindfulness for me.
Sure. And mindfulness being over here, like, yeah, different things that we can do. And mindfulness might be a strategy for self-connection, right? So it can be around self-connection. So why don't we just say connection, because it could be to yourself or someone else. Yeah. And for me, like companionship, and usually there's touch involved, and maybe even community. Yeah, that's pretty good for dance. I think we got the main ones. What about hiking in the mountains? What's motivating that?
Connection with nature.
Connection to nature. I actually see nature as a need, but yes, connection to nature is another, and maybe even beauty, huh?
Yeah.
Beauty, and maybe air, like fresh air. And if you're lucky like me, you get to go to the wellspring and get water. So yeah, I guess that doesn't happen to all hiking, but definitely fresh air, beauty, hiking. So health and well-being, right?
I would say embodiment there as well for
Yeah,
me.
embodiment. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's a pretty good list. And what about travel, a weekend getaway? What's motivating that?
Adventure.
Adventure. Maybe even novelty, huh? So wanting, yeah, for me, novelty is huge. Wanting kind of a change of scenery, change of pace.
Relaxing.
Yeah, relaxation, like peace, harmony, perhaps. Regeneration is a good need for like recharging your batteries. Yeah, for me, travel often involves learning. So that might be another motivation. All right, I'm gonna
Connection with new friends gonna be,
yeah. So
Yeah.
new connections,
For me.
so novelty,
yeah.
and then connection too. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, so I'm gonna continue, and then I'm gonna stop for questions and discussion. So strategies are what we use to meet our needs, and it's anything related to people, locations, actions, times, or objects. So, so like doing this workshop with Letitia and getting her help, so she's a person, right? Going to the mountains, so the location, an action might be hiking or biking or dancing. Times, you know, times and actions, like this workshop happened at 11 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, right? So that's a specific strategy. And objects, like getting a bike is an object, right? So an object is a strategy for meeting needs. And I learned that from Mickey Cashtan. I'm not sure if she originated it. And needs, and well, conflict happens at the strategy level. So often people will confuse needs and strategies. And this is where conflict happens. So needs are intrinsic motivation seeking fulfillment. And it's the why behind the strategy. And needs are universal, that, you know, everyone can relate to them at one time or another. And it's the intensity of our need that changes with time. So for instance, I might have a need for connection that's up for me, right? Like right now. But you know, later in the afternoon, that the energy behind my need for connection might shift towards rest. And so maybe my need for rest is up. So the mind-blowing concept that I'd love for you to think about and ponder is that there is no conflict at the needs level. So you know, when I just talked about rest and connection, there is no conflict when you just consider the life energy of needs. So I'm going to let you ponder that. There is no conflict in needs. It's only when we go to strategies that conflict can arise. So usually my mind is blown. You know, when I first got that, it's like, so I'd love to hear if there are any questions. Steph, I see that your hand's up. Would you be up for, no, what's up for you around that?
Yeah, I really like this idea, because I think that ultimately it makes sense, in that, like, if we all have access to, like, we all have these universal needs and can need them at some point. But what about in like specific situations when someone's having a deep need for autonomy and the other one's having a deep need for social connection?
Yeah, beautiful.
And so, like, in that moment, those needs are in conflict.
Yeah. So hearing that, when you think about these two people getting together, and one of them has a need for autonomy and the other one has a need for connection, that they might experience a conflict with each other. Yes, you know, when they consider the strategy of hanging out together, we're talking about strategies already, right? So when they, you know, they talk about what strategy they want to share, then you know, we're talking about strategies already. But what if instead of arguing about strategies, there was a conversation around mutual hearing, mutual, you know, expressing and hearing, like with empathy and honesty, that, you know, person A might express, gosh, I have autonomy is up for me. You know, I need some space right now. And what's up for you? And so maybe the other person says, well, I have this need for connection. And so in this ideal situation, they're able to hear each other and decide that, you know, maybe person B that has this need for connection, maybe they get their need met for connection elsewhere through like either hiking or dancing or calling someone else, so they can meet their need with a different strategy. And the person with autonomy needs, you know, they can do whatever it is they want to do. And maybe they agree to get together later in the evening at 6 p.m., which is also a strategy, and to have another conversation to see what's alive, what's arising in this next moment. And so that might, you know, they might have a new conversation at 6 p.m. when they come back together. So how's that landing for you, Steph? As
Yeah.
a different way of looking at needs and strategies.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like it because it is like the needs exist, and then it's what do we do with the needs and what like agreement is come to.
Yeah.
I guess I have on that specific example, and I don't want to take up too much time or anything, but I found that it seems like a lot of the time there will be, that's like a big one that people will have conflict about. Like, I want space, I want us to spend time together. And it seems like a lot of the time, the person that wants more of that social connection, their needs get compromised in that particular relationship.
Yeah.
And that's also, you know, maybe just my own experience, but.
Yeah. And I totally honor, I love what you're saying, Steph, and this is totally adding to the, you know, you're adding to the discussion around needs and strategies. And so what nonviolent communication is inviting us to do is to clearly differentiate between needs and strategies. So strategies are those things that deal with people, location, action, time, and object. So when we recognize that, hey, you know, us talking right now, that like I'm a strategy for maybe exploring nonviolent communication, right? So I might be a strategy for learning for you. Yeah, and you have your own experience. So a lot of the practice of nonviolent communication is having the ability to honor and respect that other humans will have different needs up for them at different times. And so nonviolent communication is a way of us having a conversation about what's alive in each other so that we can find strategies to meet our needs. So I'm hoping that was helpful. And Letitia, I would love to hear from you right now, because I've enjoyed.
Waving my arms around, because I think, Steph, that's the perfect example to bring up, because it really clarifies the whole situation. You know, when two people are having any sort of conflict, and your example is so perfect, it's like, I want to hang out, and the other person's like, I need space. The issue is that them being together is the strategy. And so with nonviolent communication, when you explore these concepts about needs, what's interesting about it is when you connect with your own needs and you start to understand deeply what they are, it gives you the freedom to realize that you are responsible and capable of meeting your own needs. So you're no longer holding your partner or any other human being hostage to your needs. Does that make sense? Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I see one more hand. And hey, Rich, you got a question? And I just want to preface that I want to get you all practicing as soon as possible. So we'll take one more question, then we'll talk about empathy and what's empathy, and then you'll get to practice at least once, maybe twice, if we're lucky. Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, it's great hearing Letitia and Steph. I know that I have one of the principles I walk around with is I'm responsible for my happiness, no one else is. Like if I'm angry or conflicted, it's like it's my work. I can blame someone, but I know that this car conflict I had with a friend, like the bikes were loose on the back of the car, we're on the expressway, and he's like, check back, and I just, oh my God, I think it is loose. And so I just pressed the hazard light, and it freaked him out. But to me, I was nervous that if the bikes come off, all the people behind us might crash or die or whatever. There's a threat. But I realized we both needed the safety, but our strategies were completely different. But I wanted to make him wrong. Like, that's the wrong strategy. You don't shame me for pressing the button. But I'm like, oh, but we both have a need to make it safe. And, you know, it may have felt like for him I was smashing the windows of the car open. But to me, it's like, oh, that's the safe thing to do. But it was a different strategy.
Yeah.
But I have a historic trigger of like, well, because my needs, or I was not, I didn't know how to take care of myself as a child because I was a child. I'm trying to like take care of that child by punishing this person rather than going, oh, this is my strategy. But we both can create safety, and I can kind of like just sit with the discomfort of, wow, we're in an expressway, we both could die. And maybe my choice is different than yours. My strategy is different than yours, but I don't have to add to the actual thing where the lived experience of a threat is one thing, but my need to control the other person's strategy, you know, rather than
Yeah.
You know,
and maybe your desire, your thought that you can control the other person's strategy, because that control wouldn't be a need. But I hear that you're recognizing that you both had a need for safety, but maybe have better preferences or different ways of responding to meeting your needs, especially in danger, right? So yeah, so that's a black belt case scenario when, you know, life and safety is at stake. So thanks for bringing that in, Rich. So any final questions around needs and strategies? Because yeah, Letitia, go ahead.
Yeah, Stefan has a question. I just want to call it.
Yeah, thank you. So is it possible to have two or more competing internal needs at the moment?
I would rephrase that to say I can have more than one need alive for me in the moment. And the intensity of those needs might be different. And the metaphor that I like to use is like an orchestra, right? So an orchestra has maybe 100 instruments, and not all of the instruments are playing at the same time. Every once in a while, there's like just a flute going by itself. But other times the flute is joined by the strings, like you might have a violin, a viola, and maybe some horns, right? So when the music is pleasant and harmonious, then your needs are being met. But just because the other instruments are quiet, it doesn't mean that they're not there. So you can have multiple needs arise at the same time, but they're not in conflict. They're just there, right? And they might have a different energy and different intensity for you. So think about it. It's a yes and. It's not. It's like the trumpet doesn't negate the flute, it adds to the sound, to the experience. So they're not negating each other, they're just, there's more than one thing going on at once. Was that helpful, Stefan? So it's more of a yes and. Yeah, I have a need for autonomy and a need for justice and a need for collaboration. And I mean, it's, for me, I've realized that the more aware I am of my needs, that the richer of a life experience that I might have. Right, I see a couple more hands. Danny, did you raise your hand? And then Steph? Danny, please speak, go ahead.
Thank you. I really appreciated Stefan's question. Actually, that's funny. And I loved the metaphor. It was so beautiful. So I had that question in the back of my mind. It wasn't present, but then now that you brought it up, it resonated. And so it's kind of like those needs that you were talking about, James. And so thank you for that both. And then Rich was talking about his example, brought up something in me that was alive, is that when I parent, we use different strategies. Say hi.
Hello, hi there.
And I think sometimes when I call my partner out, it doesn't create the effect that I want. So I wanted to say thank you for the growth and learning there. And we do really, and when I say the need behind it, like, oh, you need safety or daddy needs safety, it actually creates much more connection and harmony rather than do it the nonviolent way, which is violent in itself a little bit. I mean, a lot, the way that I do it.
Well, thanks for
So thank you.
expressing that, and I'm hearing that you're grateful for the dialogue that's going on in class. Is that what I'm getting from you?
Could you say that one more time, James?
Yeah, that I'm hearing some celebration, that you're enjoying the dialogue in the class, in the
Yes.
sessions.
And shared reality and learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. All right. There was one more question. Are we good, Steph? Steph, do you have one more thing? And then I'd like to move on to the next topic.
I had another comment, but it can totally wait until the end if there's extra time.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Steph.